So we are yet again ahead of another Djokoraz match for all the marbles. This time the venue back on Philippe Chatrier for a second time for these two, but in a different setting of the gold medal match for this year's Paris Olympics. And of course coming fresh off the heels of their Wimbledon final rematch a couple weeks ago. Of course, Alcaraz there taking it in straight sets and, surprisingly one-sided fashion. That obviously is still fresh in everybody's mind as we head to this gold medal match. But that being said, in a head-to-head now, 6 matches deep, locked at 3-all, only the last 2 meetings have been particularly lopsided. In fact, 3 of the other ones were really nip and tuck down to the wire, and of course, Roland Garros last year in the semifinals seemed like it might be headed that way until, of course, the Alcaraz cramps. Roundabout way of saying really that, anytime these two are poised to face off against one another, you can expect for some fireworks to take place. And I, for one, am expecting a tighter match than we got at Wimbledon, and I'm here to tell you why. Now, this is going to be the first gold medal match that either one of these guys has competed for. Shocking as that may be for Novak Djokovic, obviously. It's been a big talking point pretty much, the last 3-4 Olympics that Novak has played since he became this dominant force. And as the years have gone by, it has been the one major title to elude him, one that he has explicitly expressed as one of his topmost priorities every Olympic year. And, you've seen it in his reactions post some of these Olympic disappointments in prior years, just how much he wants it. Sometimes perhaps that working against him, with him putting so much pressure on himself to get this done. I think in particular that was evident last Olympics in Tokyo when it seemed like the golden opportunity for him, and, I think at that point his only threat left was Zverev in the tournament, and he found himself up 6-1, 3-2. And then you find one of the more perplexing Djokovic losses ever. Not only was it a turnaround in a match that seemed so lopsided, 6-1, 3-2 breakup, and he goes on to lose 10 of the next 11 games to lose the match. And I'm aware of the heat and whatnot, but even in this, older stage of his career, he's found himself to be the master at adjusting and managing himself in certain situations within matches accordingly to make up for any, loss in endurance, cardio, whatever the case may be. And, you just don't really see losses like that for him that are so weird in nature outside of the Olympics, really. It's not like he's performed poorly, obviously, other than 2016 when he was drawn Delpo in his first match. He's made the semifinals, I think, every year he's played, which makes it, all the more wild that this is the first time he's won a semifinal in his 5 Olympic participations now. And I know we said this after Tokyo, that was probably his last great shot at winning Olympic gold. But 3 years later, here he is again, and this time finally putting himself in position to contest for the gold medal. And again, conventional wisdom is going to say that this actually is probably his last chance. You never put anything past Novak Djokovic. He very well could be here when he's 41 in 4 years, who knows. And to capture that gold medal ahead of him, he will have to scale, probably the best player on the planet now, again, in Carlos Alcaraz. Pretty cut and dry about, what a tremendous challenge Alcaraz possesses at the back end of these big events and with huge prizes on the line. I think right now we can all probably agree right now that Carlos Alcaraz is a better player than Novak Djokovic. 2 things have fueled that. Obviously, Djokovic slipping from how tremendous he was last year And then on the other hand, Alcaraz, even though through even a little bit of this winning run through Roland Garros and arguably the front end of Wimbledon, he was still a little bit choppy and had been throughout the season, whether that be, injuries, just unable to pick up rhythm. But that being said, ever since that Wimbledon final, to my eye, it would appear that Carlos Alcaraz has leveled up. To my eye, ever since the Wimbledon final, something seems to have clicked for him on serve. Both these guys have not dropped a set en route to this gold medal match, but I think Carlos Alcaraz has been the better. I think Carlos Alcaraz has looked as efficient as I've ever seen him. He's only been broken twice this entire run to the final. He was only broken once in the Wimbledon final against Djokovic, which was sort of a freak break where, someone yelled out in the crowd. Alcaraz sort of imploded for the only time in the entire match from 40 love up. I digress. I think Carlos Alcaraz, since that Wimbledon final, is playing the best I've ever seen him play. Believe it or not, it would appear that the most complete 21-year-old of all time has gotten even more complete, and that alone is reason enough to stamp him as the favorite in this match, in any match he plays right now, really. While I did say I was ready to call grass his best surface, it's not like anything shifts all that dramatically for him on clay. Obviously now a couple months removed from his problems in the forearm, he's hitting his forehand much more confidently than he was on Chatrier during Roland Garros. Bottom line, I do think Alcaraz has to be installed as the solid favorite here. But as counterintuitive as it might sound after going on about what a scary comfort zone I think Carlos is in right now, I like Novak Djokovic's chances here a lot better than I did heading into the final of SW19 a couple weeks ago. For one, obviously I think Djokovic still wearing the leg sleeve would indicate he's not 100% there yet, but he is moving a whole lot better these Olympics than he was at Wimbledon. I think he's playing a lot better as well. I think his play throughout Paris at the Olympics this year has been probably my biggest signifier that, most of his struggles for his standards this season can be tied to motivation more than anything, because to me this looks like the most dialed in he's been all season. It has to be in the back of his mind that he is 37 years old. This very well could be his last best chance, even though we said this the last Olympics, but his last best chance to score this gold medal. But also, I think it very well could be very reassuring for him that he was finally able to make it to the gold medal match and ensure that he will walk out of here with a medal, gold or silver. And that's huge for him because to this point his best result was the bronze medal back in 2008. You saw how emotional he was after winning his semifinal match. I mean, when's the last time you've seen Djokovic that emotional winning a match that wasn't for all the marbles? This means so much to him, and at the stage that he is in his career so late in it, I do think you can count on him to really empty the bucket and give it everything he's got. And if that is the case, it doesn't matter who you are on the other side of the net, which court you're on, you're going to have your hands full. And like I said, I think Djokovic here is moving better than he was at Wimbledon. We'll see if it's at the level he'll need it to be. But even despite the scare with his knee in the quarters against Tsitsipas, he has been defending loads better. A lot of vintage Djokovic defense has been on display all week. So that, I think, in conjunction with this being a best-of-3 final, it's how they've made Olympic finals since Tokyo, I believe, going from best-of-5 to best-of-3 for the men. And yeah, for the older guy going against this physical beast in Carlos Alcaraz, I think both of those close the gap in physicality and the physical advantage that I thought firmly was in Alcaraz's favor heading into the Wimbledon final. If things were to go deep, obviously they didn't on that day, but also heading into that final, I thought that Djokovic, his draw was pretty soft. He was in a spot where, so soon after surgery, it was going to be tough for him to deal with such a huge step up in competition to who he'd played en route to the final and Carlos Alcaraz. There he wasn't. Here he should be more prepared. He's playing better. He's a big-time player. He understands the gravity of this moment for him. He'll want to put his best foot forward. And if his track record is any indication, he probably will. And additionally, I know I'm coming up with a lot of intangibles here. All of this, I think, underlined by the fact that Djokovic is playing better, period, point blank. But also, you think about it, and they are 3-3 head-to-head, but Alcaraz is yet to beat him back-to-back, 2 in a row. When considering history again, in this post-prime elite phase of Djokovic's career, you think back, and it's very few and far between of guys that have beaten him, consecutive times. Off the top of my head, I know Sinner did it, Davis Cup and Australian Open this year. Been a while since Federer and Nadal did it. Medvedev, I think, did it in 2019. Team also did it in 2019. But like I said, few and far between. Djokovic, it goes to show he's done such a good job at regrouping after, any losses that he has sustained, making the requisite tactical adjustments. And all that leads me to believe that I think we will have, a pretty close to, if not A-level Djokovic in this final. I don't really think surface change is going to have, that big of a sway one way or the other. Both these guys are great here, as I said earlier. I've long felt that Novak is at least as good on clay as he is on grass. He just happened to be, I think, by far the biggest victim to Rafa's empire at Roland Garros. But still, even that being said, I would still imagine that this match will be on Carlos Alcaraz's racket. For him, I guess you wondered if, the fuel tank might be running low, especially after his quarterfinal against Tommy Paul, after which he said he was feeling the fatigue. But, the semifinal result yesterday, the demolition derby of Felix Auger-Aliassime 1-1, in conjunction with today's day off, pretty much offsets any concern for that. For both of them, really, they should both be fresh. Plus, it pays to be 21. And yeah, as long as they keep on playing, Alcaraz is going to have the physical advantage. And in a match where I am banking on Djokovic putting forth the best he can, unless you get some type of outlier poor Alcaraz showing in a big match, you'd have to think things are going to get physical. Even if we get a situation which, you cannot rule out, because we've seen Alcaraz cramp in a big match as recently as the French Open semifinals, where it's not clear that he's completely figured out big match nerves, and there's no doubt that, nerves could be a thing for both these guys in their first gold medal match. But even with that being the case, you saw Alcaraz, the most antsy he has ever been, semifinals of Roland Garros last year, playing a really, cloudy match tactically and still being able to steal a set. And since then, obviously, Alcaraz has learned to control his nerves better, not allow them to completely wreck him the way they did at Roland Garros a year ago. So given that precedent, given the form advantage, it's hard for me to imagine we get to a place where if we get an A-level Djokovic, where things aren't going to get physical, and in a tournament where to this point, aside from, I suppose, a deceptively tough and physical Tommy Paul match, which, Tommy seems to, on a pound-for-pound basis, know how to play Alcaraz the best out of anybody on tour. But you'd have to call this fuel tank for both of them at least even heading in, assuming it's full, and it should be for both. Alcaraz, basically never, aside from fall post-US Open results to this point, he almost never loses easily. even with the best of what Novak's able to produce at this point, you would expect him to have to empty the tank to get by, a generational guy that's 15 years his junior, a way that he was able to do at Cincinnati last year. And it's really as simple as that. It's only natural in the aging of an athlete that, the dynamics here would make you think that things are only going to get harder for Novak, in the sense that he's going to need his A game, and Alcaraz, just by virtue of youth, there's more margin for him there. He doesn't need to be at his very apex, he just needs to be playing relatively well. And aside from a low bouncing indoor hard court, he's going to have his chances. That's going to be something I think that's just going to be prevalent for every remaining time that these two play each other. There's that's the big thing. And also, Djokovic is moving better, but he does still have, the leg sleeve on there for a reason, I'd assume. So we're going to find out. Nobody's going to have tested his movement the same way that Alcaraz will, with the type of variety that Carlos possesses. We know, it'll be lateral, it'll be up and down, it'll be at net, it'll be everything that's going to get the run around the test. Last we heard after his semifinal, Novak said, he felt his knee a lot better against Musetti. But you would have to think it'd have to be somewhere near 100% for him to be able to pull this off. Not complete certainty there either. So yeah, I'm going with the form player. I think just because of what is on the line here, Djokovic will put in everything he has. But in spite of that, there's just no going against Carlos Alcaraz at the moment. A now very well playing Carlos Alcaraz as well. I think the last couple of years have demonstrated, and also these last two events with Novak off meniscus surgery, have definitely demonstrated that there's nobody on tour right now that is better equipped to handle the best of, even arguably still a compromised Djokovic has to offer. And even a well-playing Djokovic that, I'm probably banking on seeing. I've seen Carlos Alcaraz handle that before on the big stage, so I'm picking him to do it again. I've got Alcaraz over Djokovic in 3 for the gold medal. Should be a good one. Really excited to see what both guys can bring, and hopefully we can get a match that more so resembles their first 4 meetings rather than the last 2, for the right to bring home gold for their respective countries. That'll do it for this video though. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, it would be much appreciated if you could drop a like. It makes a big difference in helping the video perform better in YouTube's algorithm, and also subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Thank you all again so much for watching. Hope it's a great one tomorrow, and of course, I will see you all in the next one.